Hello YouTube world, this is T-Bone here and I'm going to talk about my ultimate guide to teach English in Korea. This is a guide for future expats, people who are maybe a little concerned about whether or not they want to go to South Korea and all that sort of fun stuff. So let's get started and talk about today's video. So we're going to first start with a description of South Korea itself. The weather in South Korea has a rainy season, there is hot but short summers, very cold winters, and there is a spring and fall seasons within South Korea, so there are 4 different seasons. South Korea is a peninsula with many cities of varying sizes, some very big, such as Seoul, in the tens of millions, while others, such as Incheon, are in the couple million, and then some can be in a couple 100,000. The largest groups of expats are in Seoul and Busan. Seoul is closer to the north of the country, and Busan is to the south. The religions of South Korea include Confucianism, Buddhism, and Christianity, and that's something to keep in mind for the coming parts. Entertainment in South Korea generally is K-pop, K-dramas, movies, and video games. And culturally speaking, South Korea is a authoritarian and fundamentalist culture, and that comes back to the Confucianism sort of part, which is adherence to a very strict social hierarchy. That social hierarchy must be respected, and there's a lot of cultural implications behind that. So what does it mean to be a worker with someone above you in the chain of command when they give orders and stuff like that? Then it's good to listen. Part of this also comes from Korea's history as like a military dictatorship after the split of the Korean peninsula in the 1950s. And that also contributes to the fundamentalist culture, which is not what like the United States and other Western countries tend to be. The Western countries tend to be more liberalized, meaning that you can question and ask about things. That's not really considered a rude thing to do. By doing so, it creates new forms of knowledge through questioning, while fundamentalism, authoritarianism, knowledge can be created, but by asking questions, it creates social disharmony, makes people upset, and that's generally considered a no-no in South Korea, because ultimately it's about respecting your boss and your boss's decision, and that is something to definitely bear in mind, and it's a key component of South Korean culture, and something I find a lot of expats have the hardest time to deal with. Anyway, let's keep going. So languages spoken here in South Korea are Korean, and there is some English. Generally, if you're going to a store and it's a younger person and you're going to place an order, say at a McDonald's or something like that, they will be able to understand the words on the menu that you're asking for, but in terms of a long, deep in discussion sort of conversation, that is where Korean is definitely going to come into play. So, before you come to Korea, here's a few essential questions I would ask yourself before we head into the questionnaire at the end of this document. So, what do you want to get out of living in South Korea? Do you want travel? Do you want work, food, lifestyle, learning Korean, earning money, and more? So, travel, I think, is an easy starting point, since South Korea is in Southeast Asia, and if you're interested in traveling in Southeast Asia, it's a good hub to go from South Korea to China, South Korea to Taiwan, South Korea to Malaysia, Japan, the Philippines, wherever it is you want to go, and you'll be earning a salary that's decent enough to allow you to travel to these other countries and live quite comfortably. Work, if you're interested in teaching or trying to teach abroad, this is a very good stepping stone, as the country is pretty open in terms of its connections to the Western world, which makes it an easier transition than others, I would say. Food, are you interested in Korean food? The lifestyle of being an expat, learning Korean, which is something that some people try to do here but have difficulties. The main reason I would say why is it goes back to the work culture in South Korea. There is an expectation of being a teacher here and speaking only English and not speaking Korean, and due to long work hours, most people feel very tired after work, and because of that, they may not actually go down the learning Korean rabbit hole for very long. So if learning Korean is something you're thinking about, maybe look into study abroad programs or something else, so you could learn the language that you're interested in. Or look at alternatives such as Stephen Kaufman, he does good videos, or Lindsay Bodies, I think, is that how you say her last name? These are some polyglots that have different types of language techniques that you could do from your home or in a place where you'll have more time and earning money. And next, how long do you want to live in South Korea? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5? And how old are you? 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. These are all things to consider as you're going to be teaching English abroad, which will require a lot of energy. If you're teaching to kids and you are in your 50s, that might be a lot more difficult than someone who's in their 20s, who has a bit more energy and can handle a group of large children. So let's talk about the job itself. Teaching English abroad in South Korea has a low barrier of entry. Pretty much anyone can do it. If you have a 4-year degree, then you can pretty much teach in South Korea. It needs to be verified by your home country through some apostille process, at least for Americans. But after that, you can do it. You do not need a degree in education. You could be an engineering degree, a physics degree, an English degree, or a degree in business. All of these will work so long as it is a 4-year degree from an English-speaking country. A perk of the job is that there's free housing. That means you do not have to worry about rent. Your housing is controlled by your employer, which can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing depending on the relationship that you have with your employer. Keep that in mind. South Korea has a very affordable healthcare system. Healthcare system works very, very well. And so long as your employer is abiding by the laws and paying into the healthcare system, then things are great here. Now here are some concerns to be thinking about. So, long hours. Most English teaching jobs as a starting place will start you at about 40 hours a week of teaching. It is long, and longer than most jobs. I would say when you're teaching English abroad, my little rule of thumb is that 1 hour of teaching is kind of like an hour and a half of work in an office. The reason why is that this work is tiring. There are loud classrooms with many children inside who might be screaming, shouting, stuff like that, and you're going to have to calm them down. You are going to have to be moving a lot when doing this job as well, which requires some energy. You may be dancing, singing, playing games, or doing things that are repetitive to do the job, which all in all makes it a bit of a tiring position. South Korea, compared to other countries, has low salaries, something to be considered. The minimum wage here in South Korea is 1,795,310 won, and most English teaching positions are close to about 2 to 2.4 million won. South Korean currency is at 8,290 Korean won to the US dollar, right? Here we go. And so that's something to definitely be concerned about, is the exchange rate, right? So if we have the 1 million, well, let's just say 1.8 million is going to be the minimum wage here. That means you're going to be making $1,500 a month. But with your housing and stuff like that covered, that will make things a bit better. But that's something to keep in mind, as 2 million will be about 1.675, and 2.4 will be about $2,000 in terms of US currency, right? Cost of living is quite low, so this can go a while, and you can use about $1,000 a month, or about 1 million won, while living in South Korea per month, which allows you to save a little bit of money. Unfortunately, living in South Korea, there are short vacations. No part-time work is allowed unless your employer agrees upon allowing you to part-time work, which you have to go to the Ministry of Labor and get a stamp added to your passport, so that way it can signify that you are able to work as a part-timer for each part-time position you choose to do. Most employers do not do this, meaning you're going to be stuck in this 2.0 to 2.4 million won range. Yes, 10 days of vacation is short. It can be a bit difficult. like working these 40 hours a week, you can feel very burnt out. A very common thing with a lot of expats working in South Korea is they feel very, very burnt out by the end of the year because the hours are long, the vacations are short, and the time that they do have for vacation are usually spent just kind of mellowing out and isn't really enough for traveling to other countries unless you take like a weekend or something like that. Laws for a foreigner are very strict. If you want to change your change your job, you need a letter of release. The letter of release is your company giving you a letter that says you can change jobs. And if you're looking to do a change of jobs, you can also qualify with their visa point system, which is quite strict. Takes a bit of time and allows you to learn Korean. At the end, it is an authoritarianism sort of based law system against expats, meaning that you do not have a lot of rights for changing jobs, and this allows for a lot of employers to abuse their workers, since employees do not have the ability to change jobs unless they get a letter of release, or they have to leave the country and wait for the contract period to expire before they can actually get another job. Last thing is there's no real career path for teaching in South Korea. I know many people who are teaching English here who are making about the same as what a new person would. So this makes it a good place, in my opinion, to do 1 or 2 years. But if you're looking for a 30-year career plan, I would maybe look at other options. But that is totally up to you, and this is your life, your choice, and you're in control of the ship, Captain, right? So here we go. Here's my little questionnaire that I made. If you score less than 50 points on this, I would recommend do not go to South Korea. I would proceed with caution. If you want, take out a pencil, a pen, and you can write your score down as we go along, 1 through 20, and yeah, we'll go from there. So number 1, I'm interested in Korean culture. This includes modern or traditional. 1 is the lowest, and 5 is the highest. I am a workaholic. I can socialize with people who have fundamentally different beliefs than I do. I can respect social hierarchies and people at different positions of power. I allow others to have complete control of my autonomy. I enjoy crowded and busy places. I enjoy trying new foods and different foods. I am interested in learning Korean. I can tolerate noise for a long period of time. I want access to healthcare. I enjoy working with children. I have no current job prospects in my home country. I can live in a small living space. I have a career plan when I return to my home country. I have a financial plan for my future. I am flexible and can improvise. I enjoy traveling to new places. I enjoy frigid winters. I don't have to understand everything, and I enjoy consuming alcohol. So give yourself a 1 to 5 on each of these questions, then add it up. And if you're in this less than 50, I would consider other countries. I would consider countries maybe such as China. I would consider looking into options such as Japan, the Middle East, Vietnam, or other places. 50 to 70, I would consider looking at the reasons why your lower scores in this list. For example, if you do not enjoy living in crowded and busy places, you can remedy this by moving to the countryside in South Korea, as long as you're willing to make that sort of compromise. And then reevaluate maybe whether or not you want to go. If you're in the 75 to 100 point range, then I would say yes, you're in a pretty positive situation where more often than not you're going to have a good experience based on your values, and from those values you'll have a great time living in South Korea. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much. If you liked the video, give it a like, and leave a comment below, and have a nice day.